Sherrod Seward again. We're in the eligibility part of the P1A drafting series. And first, we're going to get into international rankings. So in the P1A eligibility requirement for international rankings, you have to have international rankings that would make it more likely than not that you're recognized as a leading sports person in more than one country. And in some sports, international rankings are straightforward. In other sports, you're going to kind of have to piece it together based on the quality of the ranking system and some other factors. And I'm going to show you one example where it's one of the worst things I've ever seen adjudication officer put on paper. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see how we set this up. As always, we like to educate the adjudicating officer because you never know how experienced they are in P1A visas, especially like for us, because we do so many that we probably do more P1A petitions than the person that is adjudicating the petition. So here's how we set it up. This is color coded because it's coming straight out of our template. So we set this up by introducing the regs and giving a case thing. And we show that the petitioner need not establish that the beneficiary has played as a professional in his or her sport. And also amateur rankings are acceptable, even if the athlete recently turned professional. That's important because sometimes the athlete will have an amateur ranking, but they're going to compete in professional leagues, and the USCIS offer will reject the amateur ranking. So we always include this to show them that it's already been decided that this is good to go. And then next, we discuss where the ranking's coming from. In this particular case, it's BoxRec, which is the industry standard for showing that boxers are internationally ranked. And we don't just provide this explanation, we actually go and print out exhibits that show the other media outlets talking about this ranking system. You can also introduce expert letters that speak to this ranking system being the industry standard of acceptance. And the other thing is you can show the criteria for making the rankings. Like some leagues it's voting, some it's results, some of it it's a computer aggregate of some type of formulation that kind of compares who fought who competed against who, and spits out a ranking. In other sports, it's like there is no ranking. So, for example, if you're a basketball player, you don't play one-on-one basketball, it's a team. So you have to kind of argue that you participated in a great way on a team that has an international ranking, and try to do it that way. But sometimes in a team sport, this particular category can be difficult since you as an individual do not have the ranking. And then other sports, they don't just have a continuous ranking of what's going on. And we argue that the ultimate standings represents the rankings in that sport. So for example, in powerlifting, they have the Olympia, they have their world championships. We go and look at those world championships and we say like, okay, this is the pinnacle. At this time, this person was ranked 5th in the world because they finished 5th in the world in the world championships. That is also common that we use in racing, where they might not have a standings thing that goes through the year, but they have like an ultimate points challenge. And we just look at those points at the end of the day to say like, okay, this snapshot of the world championship is the rankings at that particular year in time. And then we go ahead and like list those rankings and stuff like that. And so let me share my screen so you can see the example. Well, I'm already sharing the screen, so go to some specific examples. So here we have one that's in motorsports, which doesn't have like a ranking system that's international like BoxRec, which takes all of the athletes that compete all the time and aggregates them into like one list. In this one, you have standings in certain series. So this James McFadden is a very highly touted racer, one of the best in the world in his sport. And so we introduced the regulations on this, gave some case law, and then we said his world ranking is number 1 in the sport. And we used the standings of the World Sprint Car Series to show that he achieved those rankings. And we also put some national rankings in here, but they're not very persuasive. But we just put them in there because sometimes, the adjudicating officer doesn't really know any better. But this is really the one that we based this one off of to be the ranking in this sport. Let's go to our next thing that we have. So here, remember I said there was one thing where they just got it completely wrong, and you just really have to make it clear to them sometimes. Because this is an example of them not knowing how their own rules work. This case is for a professional boxer, right? And boxing is one of the sports where the rankings on aggregate is very straightforward. BoxRec is the premier place, industry standard for knowing a boxer's international ranking. Ranking, ranking. Look at this. The evidence you submitted is insufficient. The record shows the beneficiary has a 1-star rating. Now notice that says rating, an rating. Nowhere in the regulations does it talk about a rating. It says an international ranking. Now let me show you what we sent them. This is the exact thing we sent them. As you can see, this fighter is 12-0. If you go look right here, it clearly says, and mind you, we actually went and circled this and put arrows to show that he is ranked 359 out of 1,200 fighters in his weight class. I mean, I don't know. I just don't even know what to say about that. But that's how clear you have to make it to them. Like sometimes you have to go and circle, highlight, permanent marker, draw arrows to stuff to show these people like what's going on, because the regulations, nor us or anybody saying anything about a rating. We don't even really know what the rating means. We're talking about the ranking, which is clearly right here. And it has never happened ever before in hundreds of P1A petitions for boxers that somebody did that. And so that's probably a case that we had to appeal and litigate, but unfortunately, it just takes so much time to do. So that was just one of those things that are very unfortunate, but you have to always kind of do your best to show, because you never know who's on the other end of that adjudicating line, All right. So here we have a request for evidence for a barrel racer. And this is another one of those sports where there isn't like a box rec or an official tally of where you get the rankings from. And so we had to do a response to this request for evidence, where we're basically trying to argue that they have previous amateur things that satisfied that. I think it's over here. Okay. So here's our response to the request for evidence. So again, we respond with the notes on the rankings. The petitioner need not establish that the beneficiary is a professional in the sport, has played a professional already. All right, we have case law that amateur rankings are acceptable, especially from junior youth competitions, as long as it's relatively recent. So here, she had an international competition, which was like the World High School Age Finals, where they brought people all over the world from high school age, and they competed, and she came in with a world ranking of 24th. So we're going to argue that her ranking, international ranking, was 24th in the world as an amateur, because it was this world competition. Everybody was there. She came out 24. Yeah. And then we have this other ranking, like this one's actually not as persuasive, where she ranked number 2 in the junior barrel racing division by the APRA, but this is a national ranking, not an international ranking. But hopefully that high placement can also be used as in the award category. So sometimes you just kind of, put them where they are, hoping for the best. But the one that we're really hoping on for this category is this one as an amateur world ranking. Okay. And then we're going to go back and kind of show you again, like So here's another example of like the box rec one for our client, Saul Alvarez, known as Canelo Alvarez. As you can see, he has the rating, but this doesn't matter. What matters is his international ranking, which is number 1 in the world in this division and number 1 in Mexico. And then also you can see the titles that he currently holds, which would be good for the awards category. Now, obviously, this is a pretty straightforward case for P1. He's actually not on P1. He's on O1 because he has all of these titles, and he does a lot of stuff in business that's more than in boxing. And then here, sometimes if they're not in box rec, like there's some sports where the governing bodies themselves hold the rankings, and so you can go to the website of some of these regulatory bodies and find rankings here as well too. So not only is there box rec, but look, it says right here that their rankings are powered by box rec. Download the ratings. So the WBC's rankings are box rec's rankings. Now there's other sports where there's third parties that hold the rankings that are typically considered the industry standard. So here you have FINA, which is the Federation for Swimming around the world. And they have their rankings here that are very convenient for every sport and distance and gender. And skiing, all the sports of skiing, snowboard, freestyle ski, more disciplines. They have international rankings under FIS. And then in track and field, you have worldathletics.org, which has the international rankings for sprinters, walkers, high jumpers, shot put, javelin, all those type of things with convenient current rankings. And then they also have the highest historical rankings that those athletes have. And then they'll also probably like list what competitions they've won and stuff like that. So you can see their most recent results, go to their profile. Track is a very clean sport to be in as far as an immigration attorney on P1s because they just have everything for you. Major championships, Olympics, can't lose there. You can't lose there. All right, so that's basically the synopsis on the eligibility requirement for P1 visas. Sometimes it's not straightforward, and sometimes it is straightforward, and you still got to hammer it to them, like that case we saw with the rating versus ranking. So don't get tired because you're going to be fighting these guys tooth and nail on everything. So just stay motivated and stay